Hello, this is Justin the Clue, and I'm just here to guide you through a few previews of the last Patreon episodes that we did. First off, an episode on the Shaw Brothers. Mostly known for their kung fu films, we discussed what they were and how varied their output actually was.
What's important to remember about them is that they were their own universe. Like when people talk about the studio system, they talk about it being like a factory line, like you come in, you do your work, you assign a project, you direct it, you do it like 9 to 5 or whatever, and then you go home and then you start again. And while that was the case for like a very short period of time in Hollywood, the Shaw Brothers essentially made it indentured servitude, where everybody, no matter how big you were a star, was paid like the same amount of money.
Well, they would get these like stuntmen who were not very well educated. It's not like they had agents or anything, and they would sign them to these draconian like 10-year contracts.
Secondly, we talked about Unbreakable, in honor of the release of M. Night Shyamalan's long-awaited sequel, Glass.
Back to Unbreakable, because this is the one that I want to talk about, because I watched it for the first time since I was 12 years old, and I really liked it this time.
Yeah, me too.
And I think it comes down to, like, M. Night, what he's good at are these, like, little simple movies that he can reveal a lot as it plays along, but like that its core concept is usually right there out in the open.
It is simple and it is very intimate. There are only a couple of characters and a couple locations, and yet, you know, partly because it came after The Sixth Sense and partly the style of it, it feels very like big and heavy, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, all his films have this kind of ponderous, self-important tone to them.
Yes.
Like, look at what I'm making. Like, he's compared himself a lot to Spielberg in the sense that, like, M. Night wanted to be Spielberg. He's like, oh, Spielberg's my favorite filmmaker.
Thirdly, we did our first Patreon's Choice episode, where we picked the name of a Patreon subscriber out of a hat and decided to do whatever movie that they wanted.
Knowing you for as long as I have, you don't like war movies very much.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not particularly interested in them, I'll say that.
In a way that, like, my brother, his fascination with, like, World War I and World War II...
People who love war movies love them.
Yeah, and, or like war itself. And not war in the sense that like my brother's joining the army and he wants to, you know, go invade a country.
They're interested. I mean, my late grandfather, who fought in World War II, used to basically only watch war movies. He had like every war movie on VHS.
Wow.
And I think he just was like, they sent him over there to Europe when he was 20 or whatever. And he spent the rest of his life kind of curious, well, what the hell happened to me over there? So, you know, he read every book, he watched every movie. He just loved seeing that time represented.
Did your grandfather ever talk about anything that he saw? Did he see any combat or any like terrible stuff?
I don't know. What I do know is that when my uncle took him over on the anniversary of D-Day to look at Normandy, he said, oh, it looks a lot different standing up.
And finally, for our 101st episode, yep, it was a big one, good old 101, me and Will shared our favorite 10 films of all time. This one got personal. We talked about why these films made our list, and also what we think of 10 best of lists, and why, for me, it was so difficult to make one.
I even love a lot of stuff, but the problem with me is I go, but is it the best? And I think that's where I run into problems. The idea of something being the best is not really that appealing for me because so many things rarely are. And most people's lists, when they're like, oh, that's the best, is because that formed as a child to be defined as the best and has just kind of continued with them from that point on.
Well, you were saying, when you were putting your list together, I said, why not pick some childhood favorites or something? But you said you didn't have that many childhood favorites.
No, I didn't.
Right. I mean, for me, I think this list is largely comprised of stuff that I've really sort of grown with over the decades, you know?
If you enjoyed these little snippets and would like to listen to the entire episodes, you can become a subscriber at patreon.com/theimportantcinemaclub. For $5 a month, you will get an exclusive episode every week, and you'll get access to our entire back catalog. Patreon episodes are much more laid back, and I would also say more personal. So if you want another side of me and Will, I would highly recommend subscribing to it. My name's Justin the Clue, and thank you very much for listening.